We begin tonight with some big breaking news. The New York Times, in an article, a long article posted tonight, appears to have blown open the John Ensign affair story with new allegations not about Senator Ensign's sexual misconduct, which we have known about for months since he admitted it, but with very serious allegations of ethical misconduct and potentially criminal misconduct in the way that Senator Ensign tried to contain the damage from the affair. Now, Senator John Ensign, you'll recall, revealed earlier this year that he had carried on an affair with one of his campaign staffers, a woman named Cynthia Hampton. Cynthia Hampton was married to someone else who worked for Senator Ensign. Her husband's name is Doug Hampton. Well, when Doug Hampton discovered his wife's affair with the senator, he confronted Senator Ensign. Senator Ensign promised to end the affair, but he didn't. And while he was still carrying on with Cynthia Hampton, he started looking for a way to get both his mistress and his mistress's husband off of his payroll. Ensign was the head of the Republican Party's Senate Campaign Committee at the time, and so he called in the political director of that same committee and asked him to help find Doug Hampton a job. After some figuring with the Republican Party's Senate Campaign Committee political director and a few more calls to friends and contributors, none of whom presumably knew that Ensign was stooping Doug Hampton's wife at the time, Senator Ensign did eventually get Doug Hampton a job apparently illegally lobbying John Ensign's office. What we are now learning from the New York Times is the extent to which Senator Ensign leaned on friends and associates to hire his mistress's husband, but also the extent to which the senator then did favors for those companies that had helped him out by hiring that guy. On two separate occasions, Senator Ensign reportedly intervened on behalf of those companies. One of them was Allegiant Air. Senator Ensign directly contacted the Secretary of Transportation to try to resolve a DOT investigation into Allegiant. Another was NV Energy. Ensign contacted the Secretary of the Interior to get them to move faster on an NV Energy project. The implications here are potentially criminal because Senate ethics rules and federal criminal law prohibit senior Senate aides from lobbying the Senate for a full year after leaving their jobs. Doug Hampton went right from his job in Senator Ensign's office into a job lobbying the Senate, including lobbying Senator Ensign. And John Ensign not only knew that, if these new allegations are correct, Senator Ensign essentially got him that illegal job. And according to Doug Hampton, Senator Ensign knew what was happening might be illegal. Quoting from the Times, Mr. Hampton says he and Mr. Ensign were aware of the lobbying restriction but chose to ignore it. Senate ethics rules and federal criminal law prohibit former aides, if they have the intent to influence, from making any communication to or appearance with any senator or Senate staff member for a year after leaving their jobs. Mr. Hampton admitted he had ignored the restrictions. As for violating the one-year ban, he says he did so at Mr. Ensign's direction. For his part, Senator Ensign tells the New York Times, quote, "I am confident that we fully complied with the relevant laws and rules governing current and past employees. I have worked on these Nevada issues with these Nevada companies for years, long before Doug Hampton left my office." Well, then there's the issue of another U.S. senator getting tied into all of this, Republican Senator Tom Coburn of Oklahoma. Mr. Coburn had previously said that although he had been intimately involved in the attempted quiet resolution of John Ensign's extramarital affair, counseling Senator Ensign about the affair, Senator Coburn said he would never talk about those discussions because of his role as a physician and an ordained deacon. Back in July, Mr. Coburn said, quote, "I was counseling him as a physician and as an ordained deacon. That is privileged communication that I will never reveal to anybody, not to the Senate Ethics Committee, not to a court of law, not to anybody." Senator Coburn has apparently had a change of heart because he has now revealed it to the New York Times, admitting to them that he personally negotiated, a U.S. senator, a sitting U.S. senator, personally negotiated a cash settlement between John Ensign's lawyer and the lawyer for the husband of the woman that Ensign was sleeping with. Quoting from the Times again, Hampton's lawyer gave Mr. Coburn a figure just under $8.5 million to cover purchase of the Hamptons' home, lost wages, and pain and suffering. Mr. Coburn dismissed that as ridiculous. Mr. Hampton came back with a lower number, about $2 million, which Mr. Coburn passed on. Mr. Ensign flatly rejected that proposal. Quote, "That's a joke, forget it." Mr. Coburn recalled Mr. Ensign saying. This is a sitting U.S. Senator secretly negotiating a settlement for a colleague's illicit affair. As a deacon and a physician or something. Mr. Coburn, who was once tight-lipped about the whole situation, now tells the Times, quote, John got trapped doing something really stupid and then made a lot of other mistakes afterward. Judgment gets impaired by arrogance, and that's what's going on here. Still left unanswered are questions surrounding payments to the Hampton family by John Ensign's parents. The New York Times has now posted online a check for $96,000 made out to Doug and Cindy Hampton and 2 of their 3 kids. Still don't know what happened to the poor 3rd kid that he had to be left out of it. Cindy and Doug Hampton both claim this was a severance payment, although Ensign still claims that the check was just a gift from his parents to the Hamptons and 2 of their 3 children. Whether it was a severance or a gift could also be a potentially criminal matter. Unsurprisingly, the law isn't too keen on Senate staffers' severance payments being made privately by senators' moms and dads. Also still unexplored is John Ensign's role in getting the son of his mistress a job at the Republican Party's Senate Campaign Committee. This is a story that is still developing, and one that has just been given a lot of new life by some great reporting tonight from the New York Times. Joining us now is one of the reporters who broke these new details on this story. He is New York Times investigative reporter Eric Lipton. Mr. Lipton, congratulations on the scoop. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, I just said a lot about this case and about your reporting, so I want to give you a chance to tell me if I've screwed anything up there in that introduction, since you've looked into it in such detail. Did I get anything wrong?
No, I think most of it's right. I mean, just that the senator insists that his interaction with Hampton was appropriate, and that he never took action at Hampton's request. Although actions were taken that were consistent with what Hampton asked, the senator makes this distinction that his delivery of those requests was not as a result of what Hampton wanted.
In terms of potential criminal liability and ethics liability here, though, it's not so much a question of what Senator Ensign did at Doug Hampton's request. Isn't it simply a matter that Doug Hampton was lobbying John Ensign at a time when he really was not allowed to be doing so?
Well, clearly, the rules prohibit 1 year of lobbying communication with the intent to influence, and that is the obligation of Doug Hampton. And so, whether or not that's a strict violation of law is up to others to decide. The question for the senator is whether or not he knew of it, he participated in that, perhaps in a proper lobbying, and that then becomes a separate issue. So, the culpability is different for each.
Do you feel that you were able to conclusively document that Senator Ensign did get Doug Hampton a job that was essentially a job lobbying the Senate, that he got him a job in which he would be called upon to be doing government relations right after leaving his Senate employ?
There's no question that the senator made a series of telephone calls. We spoke with a half a dozen executives at major firms in the state of Nevada that received these phone calls, and each of them essentially recalled similarly what the senator said. I have this aide, he's coming back to the state, he's a good guy, would you talk to him? The senator in those conversations does not appear to have been explicit that he wanted them to hire Doug Hampton to be a lobbyist, but that was how most of them interpreted it. And in the conversations that they subsequently had with Doug Hampton, they talked about lobbying. And in the 2 contracts that he ultimately signed, both of them were essentially government affairs / lobbying contracts.
Let me ask you about one other matter here that has always bothered me about this case, and it's the question of the $96,000 payment. And you at the Times have been able to post a copy of that check online now, and had never seen it before. And I was always wondered who it was going to be made out to. It's made out to Doug Hampton and Cindy Hampton and 2 of their children. The case was made by Senator Ensign's lawyer that this was not a severance payment by any means. It was just a present. It was just a gift from Senator Ensign's parents to Doug and Cindy Hampton and 2 of their 3 children.
Right.
It doesn't seem credible. It seems like an impossible case. Did you get any further either backstopping from the senator on that, or any further explanation of that payment?
There's basically a disagreement here about what actually occurred. The Hamptons both spoke with the senator individually in April of 2008, just before the payment was made. According to their account, the senator made it clear that this was severance, that this was to make up for the lost wages, and that the money was going to be about $100,000, and it was going to come from him and his wife. And then the check arrives a few days later, and it's written out on this trust fund account. And then, but all along, the Hamptons are under the impression that this money essentially came from the Senator Ensign and his wife. And now, the senator's perspective on this is that, and according to a statement made by his lawyer, that this was a gift by his parents. And there's two different points of view, and we can't reconcile them at this moment.
On the question of Senator Coburn had been very emphatic that he would not go on the record about what his conversations had been like with Senator Ensign about the resolution of this affair. He had even claimed that his silence on the matter was attributable to his status as a deacon and a physician, and that he wouldn't reveal the content of those communications to anybody. He then did talk to you on the record about what he and Senator Ensign discussed.